So this is how you flatten floors. We're installing laminate, and it has a pretty tight tolerance, 3/16 within 10 feet, according to the new materials. But interestingly, this is Pergo product. Back in the old days, they had a installation essentials guide, which had very tight tolerances. They wanted 1/16 within 3 feet. And if you do the math, it's equivalent, right? You divide 10 by 3, and you divide 3/16 by 3, you get about 1/16. But it was actually even tighter than that on their old essentials guide, because they specified a 10-foot radius. So within a 10-foot radius, you were allowed 3/16 variation, which, if you do the math, a 10-foot radius is a 20-foot diameter circle, and 3/16 in 20 feet is virtually unheard of. So that's probably why they changed it to 1/16 in 3 feet, or actually they're going by 3/16 in 10 feet now, and they're not specifying too much beyond that. So you're gonna need a 10-foot straight edge. I also like to use a 6-foot, just because it's easier to carry around. It's easier to find out humps. So how you find a hump is you put it on, and then you rock it back and forward. It starts rocking like that, and you've got a hump. You can also do it with a 10-foot. It's harder to find with a 10-foot because you're going to span much more, a greater distance. So it's going to be harder to find those raised areas. I like to flatten the raised areas so that you just know what's going on. You're going to flatten out the hump, and then you can find out if you have more depressions that you need to fill or not. It just makes every day much more easy to stand, to follow the layout. So what I like to do is, once you find a hump, I like to put a shim and then just feel underneath until you meet resistance. So, and then I like to mark it with chalk. So this level is sitting on this hump right here, from here to here, because after that you can kind of get it under, especially here, so you can kind of see the gap too in the shadows. So we're gonna grind this out and try to get everything within 1/16, whether it's 10-foot, 6-foot, 3 feet, because there's some spots that I know I got down to 1/8 and 6 feet, and I could still feel some sponginess. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do here. Okay, so there are a lot of videos on YouTube on how to pour self-leveling, and no matter how many videos you watch, it's very tricky. Chances are you're gonna screw up like I did and get a bunch of high spots and low spots. So what YouTube's lacking content-wise is how to grind out those high spots. Now, the second contractor I had here, argued with me about high spots and how if they're connected from one high spot to the next. So like, say you have, one high spot here and one high spot there, and then you have a big depression down the middle, and that's okay. I personally don't think that is, even if it is within the manufacturer specs of 3/16 within 10 feet. All those high spots need to be ground down, especially if you can teeter your level or straight edge on them, because the strategy is to flatten the floor is you need to grind out all the high spots until what you're left is with our low spots, and then you can use the straight edge to screed self-leveling in and fill in those depressions. So for example, if the worst case scenario is if you have a high spot there, one high spot in the middle, and then one high spot at the end, you're gonna have a depression. You're gonna have a peak and a valley, and a peak and a valley, and if you run your floorboards this way, you're gonna have, you know, a hollow spot here and a hollow spot there. It's just gonna sound and feel horrible. Yeah, so this spot right here is actually teetering. So you can actually see the gap underneath on the left side and on the right side. There. And where it starts, the concrete starts to kiss the straight edge is where the high spot is. And I've marked it out with chalk to help me grind. When you grind, what you're gonna need is an angle grinder. I just use the 4.5, and you're gonna need the cup concrete grinding disc, and along with the dust shroud. I bought the DeWalt dust shroud because you can actually, you know, open it to get to the edges, which is pretty cool. The adapters that they sell with this are very weird. I just used a 1 1/4 hose and duct taped it to the shroud. The best size for your shop vac, the contractor that we had like a giant 14-gallon shop vac for his grinder, but it was so ridiculously heavy once it got full. It weighed about 100 pounds. So I think the best size is about, I think that's about a 4-gallon. And that's all you really need. I did this entire room with this setup, and I ground up a lot of cement, probably 5 or 6 shop vac bags full of it, because I had poured so many high spots in. So yeah, you also need you need knee pads, earplugs, and an N95 mask just to be safe. You don't want to breathe in all this stuff. And yeah, it's as simple as using the dust and dust shroud and the angle grinder to just get in there and then just take off all the chalk. The kids chalk, courtesy of my kiddo, works very well to tell you where, or to mark where the high spots and low spots are. Yeah, I just go along the straight edge so you can see where it starts to kiss the straight edge, and you just mark that edge, and you space it out. You check within like 6 inches, and then see how it connects, see where that peak is going and how it contours, and then you come in with your angle grinder. So we're gonna try to get this down. I've also verified the floorboards are actually gonna run this way, so I verified that this is the high spot. When you turn your straight edge 90, and you can see, if you see it kissing in that area as well, then that is gonna be for sure a high spot. So let's get grinded. Now what I like to do is a couple of passes, just to show you guys. So we're out on the edges, almost between 1/8 and 3/16 on the edge on that side. So we're gonna bring this little hump down just to get it a little bit better, and try to get that side down as well. is a 4.5 cup. You have to have a 5-inch cup, but a little bit better on the edges. It's just a half of the same gas. So what I've noticed is that you have to get this right at the edge. This one, right at the edge. So I like to use my left finger to push and rotate the shaft so that we're right up against it. So, as you can see, this spot's better. You can actually lift the shim. Yeah, that brought it down a lot. We're about, we're less than 1/8 there now. 1/8 there. So now we have a new high spot right here. Between here and here. So we'll mark it. We'll bring it out. See how it travels. It's teetering a little bit, a lot less than before. Yeah, still a little bit teetering. So as you grind on the hump, the area that you have to grind increases. That's how you know you're getting close to where you need to be. So when it rotates like this, the center is going to be the high spot, the highest spot is right there. So we need to pay extra attention there. And we're pretty good right there. We're like an 8. So I'm going to double check both ways. I'm pretty good taking off. Grind down this corner a bit. And really pick up these edges a bit too. When you pour the edges, it's really tricky. So you put close attention to it. Still a little high spot there. So remember it was high over here and it's high over here, so you know this is going to be the high spot for sure. I like to just little bit more to go. Yep. That's a high spot to the cooker. Here. And you can see them around that spot too. This spot there. Like I said, as laminate, the air is going to dry into it because you're chopping up the top of the hill, so you're going to have more and more as you go. You want to double check to make sure. This is the most important step. There's not a lot here, so that's the high spot. solid. This way the priority is. Yeah, like about 116, so that's exactly what I want to do. Thank you. I hope you find it comfortable. So for this spot, we've already ground down the high spots that were on the right over here. And there was a high spot over there. And afterwards, we were left with this big gap. Between that high spot and that high spot. They want to grind it more because we would start getting into interfering with, the flatness going this way and going that way. So now that we've ground down as much as we can use those two high points there and there to help us screed it up. With our trowel here. A little bit more on this side. Start pulling. As you pull off your front, see how it's pull back over here. So here we go. Self-leveling. We'll see. 24 at the time. So there's good stuff here. So it's the day after the pull, so we're just gonna clean up the edges here with the grinder.